Welcome again to another exciting opportunity for us to look at how one can maximize their singleness. Listen, it's been a great ride, it's been a great opportunity, and we've had some great comments and we've had some great topics, and I'm just so grateful that you all continue to share not just the podcast, but to share your thoughts. And, I'm here again with Angie, and, I just love the way you bring things out and how you're touching people's lives. And today we're going to be talking about recognizing wolves in sheep clothing, but from a different perspective.
Okay.
Now we're going to go with part two.
Yes.
Because before, when we talked about this thing, of course, we had our guest speaker on, and we got some great insight. But one of the other things that I think that we need to look at is from the flip side.
Okay.
Because oftentimes we look at how do you recognize a wolf in sheep clothing, but we forget that some of us become wolves in sheep clothing.
Ooh, that's so true.
And not necessarily because we're trying to be carnivorous animals per se, but because sometimes I think people feel like they have to. It's such a competitive world out there.
True.
And so, and it's been my experience that when you're single, if you are not satisfied with your singleness, let me put it that way.
Okay.
If you're not satisfied with being single, then you are more apt to you're apt to become a sheep that puts on wolf's clothing. Okay.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. I get it. I get what you're saying. Basically, I guess we call that meeting a person's representative.
Right.
And
Yes.
I think we all go through that, or I don't know if you have, years ago, but I know.
Yeah, I've been over 21 for a long time.
But you've been married for a long time also.
Well, that's true, but I wasn't always married all
That's
my
true.
life.
You're right.
So,
Were you
Yeah.
a wolf in sheep's clothing?
Well, I was a
back
wolf
then?
in sheep clothing.
Okay.
I wasn't a sheep trying to be a wolf.
Okay. Okay.
But that was before my salvation days.
Okay.
That was before I was, a minister.
Okay.
And so the crowd that I grew up with were all wolves.
Oh, okay.
However, we were, I guess, what I would call sophisticated wolves.
Wow. Okay.
Because we understood the necessity of playing the role of sheep.
Okay.
Yeah. But the problem is, I should say, is that, and I guess the question that I want to ask you about, so that we can kind of bounce it around a little bit, is because when I'm counseling people sometimes, and they come to me, and they have kind of moved away from that state of brokenness, then they get into a relationship and they come back and they make that same mistake over again.
Yes.
And when I'm counseling them, what I found is the reason for that mistake is that they became a sheep. They are sheeps, because they've gone through the process, they've got themselves together, but they felt like they needed to be a wolf in order to attract somebody. So they compromised themselves.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I want to ask you about today. Because I'm sure that you have experienced people that do that,
Most
and
definitely.
so I guess the question then becomes is how do you protect yourself against falling into that trap, and or recognizing that you are walking into that trap.
I've actually had it happen to me before, and I will say the signs were there in the beginning, but I ignored them. I thought I could, I don't want to say change the person, but help them out, so to speak. And eventually it came out later. Sometimes people are trying to protect themselves from being hurt once they've been hurt in the past. So they portray and pretend to be this person that they're not. So then when you find out exactly who they are, then you recognize, well, as you get deeper, because you will go deeper, because you're thinking it'll be okay. And you just go along with things, even though you're seeing the red flags, you're not seeing them as red flags. You just see potential to fix things per se.
Right. And you know, because from just a practical standpoint, you know, I'm just give example. And I'll use the man for example, because that's what I'm intimately familiar with.
Okay. Okay.
You know, a man can sometimes pretend to be something that he's not, right? And the normal way when we talk about it, we talk about that man who comes across as a sheep when he's really a wolf, right? Like, let's say the man pretends that he's a gentleman. Then once you get to know him, you realize that's not where he's at. In fact, he's pressing and he has one thing in mind. But then there's also the guy, and I experienced this when I was talking with some young adults, but there's also the guy who really is the gentleman, right? But because he's listening to a lot of songs that say, you know, that girl wants, she wants a roughneck. You know what I'm saying? And so what he will do then is he really is a sheep, but you'll pretend to be a roughneck because it seems like that's what the girls really want. You know,
that doesn't last very long.
You know, but you know what I'm saying? So, and that's what I'm saying. And I think women do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that there's sometimes there are women who really are sheep, but in order to compete, they will act as if they are a round-the-way girl.
Sometimes, speaking on one side of things, a person, once again, they may be protecting themselves if they've been hurt before. So they come across as being this person, like you said, an around the way girl, or just knowing more than what they know, or, you know, willing to experience more than what they're comfortable with, just to hold on to someone.
Right.
And I can honestly say that's not something, if I'm not comfortable doing something, I'm not going to do it. But there are some people, when you don't really know who you are, you will just kind of go along with the flow, just to say you have someone, and then later on you end up in a relationship with this person, and you're just not happy at all. You're not happy at all, and things just kind of get crazy. You lose yourself for the most part.
And that's a good point. You do. So, what would you recommend to some of our lookers on about how to identify within yourself if you are becoming what you think the other person wants, rather than giving them who you are?
Becoming can be difficult, especially if you don't recognize that you're not there already. But when you enter a relationship, if you're not happy in the relationship still, or if you're looking for this other person to make you happy or fulfill you in some way, then it's not about them making you happy. It's about you making yourself happy first. So a lot of, and once again, that starts with surrendering to God for guidance, that we have to establish relationship with him and have some alone time. But that's the one thing that people don't want to do. They don't want to, I should say, go to that secret place, that quiet place, and just allow God to work on them, to show them who they are. Because once you know who you are, there are certain things you're just not going to entertain, period. And not to say we won't make mistakes or, you know, kind of fall back on our default, our old ways sometimes, because that happens in life. But there are just certain things you're not going to do because you're not comfortable with those things.
Okay.
So,
and just to paraphrase a little bit.
Okay.
So what I hear you saying then is that, you know, in order to guard yourself against becoming that sheep who now puts on the air as if they are a wolf, you know, you have to set your boundaries up front.
Most definitely.
And make sure you don't cross those boundaries, right? Okay. Yeah. Because I'm just thinking it's so easy to try to live up to another person's expectations when you know that's not who you are.
True.
You know, or at least it's not who you are at the moment, because you kind of walked away from some stuff, right? So, you know, and that's a good point. So I guess then the next thing that I think I would be questioning then, and that is that how then do we look at, how do you guard against someone who is either taken advantage of or who is, I guess, misusing that relationship? How do you guard against someone taking advantage of you because you are more apt to conform? You know what I'm saying?
I do.
So how do we protect ourselves? And how do you guard against it? And then what do you do if you do get there and realize that I am there? You know, and what are some of the pitfalls of allowing yourself to get that deep too soon?
Definitely been there. I must say, I was there for years where I thought being the bigger person was keeping the peace for my children's sake because they're watching. So it didn't work out in that way, because then you come across as a doormat, or the other person will use you because they feel like they're basically only nice when they need something from you. But they really don't like you. They tolerate you for the most part. And once I recognized what was going on, I kind of got tired of being the nice person. And I hate to say, unfortunately, I had to lose myself, who I was for a moment, you know, to kind of let them know I'm not stupid. Because sometimes people will, when you're nice, they think they can run over you. People will take advantage of you. So I had to really, you know, put my foot down. But at the same time, when a person is continually manipulating you, you have to be strong enough to just walk away from that and let it go, because they don't mean you any good.
Right.
If someone loves you in that way, they're not going to manipulate you over and over. But sometimes we have to recognize also that the other person, the abuser, they may be sick. Sometimes people don't recognize what they're doing because they're so accustomed to it. It's a habit for them.
Right.
But if you recognize what's going on, the only way you can recognize it is to get yourself together first before you enter into a relationship. Everything stems back to healing. When you don't, you'll put up with anything. You know, but when you've healed, you can recognize red flag. You can see a whole lot of things. And the Holy Spirit will show you some things also. He'll reveal some things. And that will help you when it comes to walking away, because it's hard to do certain things in our own strength because of the flesh. We get weak. And sometimes we want to be with someone we're with them out of habit, or we're lonely, just different things of that nature. So we may put up with some things that we shouldn't. So,
now, do you think that's why people who have, you know, allowed themselves to put on the air that I am a wolf when really they are sheep, do you think that's why oftentimes they end up having a sense of rejection when they show their real self? And do you think that contributes to sometimes that sense of low self-esteem, because you feel like you have to change who you are to meet someone else's expectations?
Or they're guarding their heart. They don't want to. They feel like if I guard my heart, then I won't be hurt. And like we spoke about in yesterday's podcast, you know, keeping some for yourself, so to speak, holding back who you really are, because like you said, you're afraid that if you show who you really are, then they may not like you. You may not be accepted. Maybe something happened in your childhood or in your past where you were rejected for whatever reason. Maybe, you know, as a kid. And so you feel like maybe, as a kid, you're a jokester. You're always cracking jokes, and you notice that people like that. They gravitate towards you because you're always joking. So you become this person that that's not necessarily who you are, but you just keep up that facade just to keep certain people around you. It makes you feel more comfortable about who you are. Like you said, you maybe your self-esteem is low, you have low self-worth, and you're just not, you don't know how to be you.
You're right, and I think that there are people out there that's watching that need to understand that point that you just made, right? Because it's easy if you think that within yourself, who I am is not who they want. It's easy to try to transform yourself, but at the risk then of making yourself feel less important, because the more you think you have to transform yourself to meet someone else's expectations, the less you start thinking of yourself. And then if someone does act like they like the new you, right, then it really kind of puts a stamp of approval to reinforce your thoughts that I must not be good like I am.
Exactly.
Because they will only like me if I am acting like I'm a wolf. That they're not accepting of the sheep. And I think, and I'll say this especially for, some of the ladies out there. Well, let me back up. I'm gonna say especially for some of the guys out there. Because, I gotta tell you, I think that this is a problem for more men than women.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that more men try to put on a wolf attitude because women act like they want someone other than that, but in reality, if the guy doesn't have a little wolf in him, most women don't give him the time of day.
That's true. It can be true.
You kind of want that guy who, if someone says something out of the way to you, that he's ready to stomp their head in. Then if he does stomp their head in, then you, wait a minute, what are you doing? But you kind of want it anyway. Well, see, the sheep isn't going to do that. The sheep is going to be like the Christian guy. He's just going to say, excuse me, sir, please don't talk to my lady like that. But they kind of want the guy that's going to say, hey, man, what's up? Hey, if you don't want some stuff, you better not bring no stuff.
We want to feel safe and protected.
Right, so you kind of want the guy that got a little wolf in him, but he may be that guy that is serious about his Christianity. He may be the guy that does turn the other cheek. He may be that guy that does give a soft answer, like the Bible says. A soft answer turns away wrath. And so that's what I'm saying. I think there are a lot of guys out there like that, but they recognize that didn't work when they were in college, or that didn't work when they were, is that the women wanted someone, the football player was the one that got the girls.
True. Or the basketball player.
Right. It wasn't the nerd. It was, and it wasn't the guy that had, that relaxed demeanor. So I'm just saying, I think it works both ways. But that does give you a complex, right?
It does.
And I think the same thing happens with women as well. And I'm saying it because I think people need to understand that if you have to change yourself to meet somebody else's expectations, then they're not worth you making the effort.
That's right.
Because you're wonderful who you are. I don't think anyone should ever let someone else tell them that their worth is not there.
Oh, most definitely. But it can happen. And once again, I've had someone say that to me, the same person, the manipulator, the abuser, because when you don't beat to their drum, then they get angry with you. And that does something, it seeps down on the inside. And you don't recognize that seed is growing. So this is why it's best you have to know who you are. You have to heal and distance yourself from people that are not there to help you, to support you and help you grow. And it's amazing because when you preach in church on Sunday, I cannot remember what you said, but I just know at that moment, God told me it was okay to let go. When you were speaking about letting some things go, and it immediately, the face of this person popped into my mind. And I knew exactly what it was. Like, it's okay, because sometimes we feel guilty and we'll allow ourselves to continue to play a part or allow people to be in our lives that shouldn't be there. So it's just one of those things where healing is important, knowing who you are in God and knowing that He validates you and not this world, not other people, and not what you do. You have to know who you are as a person from the inside out. So and I want us to stay there for a little bit, because what you said right there, I think, was key, right? It's key, and I want people to pick up on that.
you said that you can't let other people dictate who you are. You have to know who you are. And I think that's so important because, you know, I cannot tell you the number of people I've come across that spend their life changing, you know, to fit someone else's need. And that's one thing that, you know, I have, you know, I have been called arrogant for that reason. Because,
Really?
Because the one thing I won't do is change to fit your needs.
Okay.
You know, I'm on the far end of it, you know, like, so because
I was selfish,
you know,
for not doing that also.
Because, you know, from a young child, you know, my mother always brought us up with one simple concept: there's nobody like you.
That's right.
That was it. There's nobody like you. There's nobody like you. And only that nobody like you, her thing was that, you know, the mere fact that you came out of me makes you special.
That's funny.
So that makes you special because, you know, you came out of me and I know I'm somebody, right? But I think that's so key. I think so many people, I think that's how they get caught up and get messed up.
Okay.
Because if you are not secure in who you are, and if you're constantly trying to change to meet someone else's expectation, if you're not being who you are, and you're letting other people dictate what you ought to be, you know, that in and of itself is a painful endeavor.
It is.
You know, because that person's vision of you will always change, you know, because that's life. You know, most of us, when you get what you want something else.
That's true, we do.
You know, so you get so if a person is changing to give you what you want, give you what they want, I should say rather, and then once you give them that, then they're gonna want more. Then once you give them that, they're gonna want more. And so what that says to you then is, I'm something's wrong with me that they keep wanting more. When really it's not something wrong with you that they keep wanting more. It's just human nature that we always want more.
That's true.
You know, if the person is a top Italian chef, after a while you're gonna say, I need some Chinese food.
That's true.
You know.
Yeah, you're right.
And when they get that down pat, then you're gonna say, we need some soul food. It's gonna be some constant changing, you know, all the time. And so I'd say that because I want people to appreciate that point, right? That you have to be satisfied with who you are.
Most definitely.
And recognize that what you have to offer is more than anyone else ever dreamed of anyway.
That's right.
You know,
we're individually unique.
Right. We all have something special to offer. And so I look at it like a lock and a key, right? Every key won't fit every lock.
That's true.
Right? But if you get the right key, right, it's just a perfect match.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. I think that's what we have to see ourselves as, right? You see yourself, if you are the, and I'm using this term, but I'm using it loosely, if you are the hunted, then you ought to see yourself as the key.
That's right.
And say that person is the lock. And so if my key doesn't fit that lock, I'm not going to try to change my key.
That's right. Don't go get go off and get another key made.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to the locksmith and say, hey, look, change me.
Exactly.
No. If my key doesn't fit your lock, then that means, you know, I'm not the right key for you.
That's right.
And vice versa. If I'm the lock and I'm trying to get a key, if that key doesn't fit, there's no need in me saying, well, let me get somebody to change the tumblers on my on my lock.
Yeah.
I should just say, hey, you know what? You're not the right key for me. And that way, it doesn't mean that I'm a bad lock.
No,
and it doesn't mean you're a bad key.
Nope.
It just means what? We don't
work.
Right. We were not designed to fit, you know, one another. And there's something that you always say on every podcast that I have heard you on. And I think it's because it is such an important point that people overlook.
Okay.
Lock and key is based on purpose and plan.
It is.
Right? It's
it most
purpose and plan,
is.
right? Because God has a purpose for all of us. And if the purposes don't fit, we're in trouble anyway.
I agree.
I don't care what else attracts you to somebody.
That's so true.
If the purpose don't fit, you know, we're in trouble. So maybe you can just talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about that impact, you know, and how that operates, and what are the pitfalls when you don't allow that to be your driving force.
I have recognized just here recently in purpose how unfulfilled I was along the way in other relationships because I was looking for the other person to make me happy. I didn't know how to make myself happy, or I thought I was, but I thought maybe this person that I'm with, they're not doing A, B, C, or D, so, something is wrong. And like you said before, relationship is about what we can do for the other person and not necessarily what they can do for us. So I didn't recognize that. I was just really unfulfilled, but also being in relationships where you're unequally yoked. Like now, me being in purpose, if I meet someone that wants to go to Africa maybe to take care of orphanage, and working in an orphanage or whatnot, that's not gonna work for me. So me knowing who I am and that helps me recognize that person when they do come along. And like I said earlier, we're all unique in our own way. We shouldn't try to change for other people because God created us individually unique for a reason. So I think back on certain things people say, well, I don't want to tell all my business, and you don't have to. God created me this way. I've always been this way. This outspoken, outgoing. I had to learn how to rein it in because sometimes I would just say certain things to people, but he's worked on me over the years. And I think that's one thing that attracted me here, church, to your style is your directness. I can appreciate that. Whereas some people, it might hurt their feelings.
Well, it does.
But you say what you say, and that's what it is, and you're not meaning it to hurt, but it gets a point across. So I will say, I tell people, don't change who you are. All those little nuances and just ways that you have about yourself that make you unique, God made you that way for a reason. And there's something that he wants you to do with those ways. It's going to all come together. If you sit and recognize and have that relationship with him and seek him daily, surrender to his will daily, he'll guide you through and begin to show you what it is that he wants you to do with who you are and the things that you love.
Absolutely. As you were speaking, it reminded me, and I don't mind dating myself, it reminded me of a song by Barry White.
Okay.
And the song Barry White, it said, don't go changing trying to please me.
All right.
He says, I'll love you just the way you are.
Okay.
And I think that's the key point when I think about, the idea of recognizing a wolf in sheep clothing and also recognizing a sheep that's in wolf clothing. Because there's some sheep who give you one impression, and then once you get locked in, that's a whole different ball game. It ain't what they really portray.
That's right.
So it works both ways. But I think the main thing for everyone to keep in mind is the central thing of what you just expressed, which is, hey, listen, you're wonderful the way you are. Now, it doesn't mean that there might not be some subtle things you want to work on, right?
That's right.
But you're working on them not for the other person. You're working on them for yourself.
That's right.
Because you want to be the best you can be, and that's what maximizing your singleness is all about.
Exactly.
It is not becoming a better person so you can please somebody else. It's becoming a better person so that you can be better on your own terms, and so that the God that you serve can get the best glory out of your life.
Right.
That's truly what the maximization is all about, right? And so in doing that, you be who you are, you recognize how wonderful you are, and that's how you walk. And you also understand that, hey, listen, that relationships are not about forcing somebody else to mold in a certain image.
That's right.
So I can't misuse, I can't abuse you, I can't push you to be something that I want you to be. I should push you always to be what God wants you to be. Which again, which is your last point about purpose, is that if my purpose has to fit your purpose, it has to be that lock and key thing, right? It has to fit your purpose. And it also has to help you with your purpose.
It does.
Right? And if we're hooking each other up together, then we are moving forward, we are growing, and it's not about one person being the dynamic one and one person being the weak one.
That's right.
It's not about one person being the controller, one person being controlled, because we all are helping each other to move forward.
That's right.
And so that to me is a wonderful thing. And so listen, time is always our enemy, it seems like.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
But so I just want to say to those listening, listen, keep your comments coming. They're great. Keep your topics coming. They're great. And I'm going to stay with our normal protocol of giving the last words to Angie, because she always has some wisdom that I think needs to be let out.
I think we said it all.
Said it all.
All the wisdom. I think we went over it. I had something in my mind and it went away. So I can't even think of what I was gonna say. But I will say, once again, it's important to heal. I say this every time and I'm gonna keep saying it because so many of us are afraid. I was afraid for so long. I just continued in relationship after relationship because I was afraid to be alone. And maximizing your season of singleness is not, like Dr. Daniel said, to prepare yourself for a mate. It's getting you ready for God's glory so he can get the glory and for God's kingdom and to do what he wants you to do here on this earth. So then, and now if you meet someone in the process, that's awesome. That's amazing. You'll be able to recognize them. But at the same time, just do your work. Don't be afraid. God is right there. He's gonna love on you. He'll catch you. Just let go of whatever it is. Just tell him I'm hurting and just surrender to him. God, I give it all to you. I'm done. Just give it to him with a humble heart and he will take care of you. So that's it.
Right. It's been a great session. Thank you all for being a part of us and allowing us into your homes on today. God bless you. Have a beautiful weekend and we'll see you next time.